see someone who is here who is one of my guests. So I'm wondering, Bill, are you able to do your presentation now? Let me, no pressure, but I just thought I'd ask you because you've been sitting.
Sure.
Well, let me introduce my next guest, Bill Sanda. Welcome, Bill, and thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. My pleasure to serve you and to be with you. What we're going to do tonight is have a short conversation about the work I do with the Akashic Records and light language. A little bit different than what Elizabeth does. And I think everybody knows that there is no one way to work with the Akashic Records. There's basically your way, whatever that may be, and however that may be. Just a little bit of background. I've been working with the Akash for about 15 years. Um, and that happened. It's my gift and my talent. It's what I do is something that apparently I've done many lifetimes. I'm just the latest incarnation of that body of work. And back in 2010, I was living in Charlottesville, Virginia, home of Thomas Jefferson and the University of Virginia. And I'm sure you all have heard of Edgar Casey. So one of my friends was bringing in speakers from Virginia Beach, where the Edgar Casey Foundation exists. And during the first kind of gathering, she had a publication table, and on the table was a book called Edgar Casey on the Akashic Records. Now, of the 14,000 readings that Edgar Casey did, roughly 3,000 were done in the Akash in his own particular way as a trance medium. So I'm walking by the table. I had no particular interest in the Akashic Records. I had heard of them. I've never had a session. And all of a sudden, I walk by the table, and the book literally smacks me in the head energetically and says, "Read me." And I said, "Oh, okay." I get the picture, and I bought the book, and I read it that evening. And that's when I discovered that I had this gift and talent of working with the Akash. So I spent a couple of months grabbing friends left and right to kind of like relearn, reintegrate myself with the Akashic Records, since I hadn't really done anything with that this particular lifetime. And then, hung out my shingles and started offering private sessions. I also started working with groups of up to 8 people that I can do. I do live I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. And so I do groups in the Mid-Atlantic area live, and I've also done groups by Zoom. Um, and I do speeches and talks at healing expos as a vendor. I offer short mini sessions in the various and sundry healing expos. So that began my journey in terms of the Akashic Records. I actually I had my first experience of spirit, you might say, or higher self when I was 11. I grew up outside of Chicago, Illinois, and at that time I was just really into baseball. So I'm coming back from baseball practice and about a block and a half from home, and I never had any experience with religion, never went to church, never read the Bible, never went to Sunday school, barely knew about Jesus. My parents could care less about organized religion. So I had no real background. I'm walking about a block and a half from home, and all of a sudden I hear a voice in the back of my head say, "God does not live outside of you. God lives within you. You are God." Whoa, 11 years old, and like, what is going on here? But I did freak out, which was interesting. And it went on to say that God is not a male with a long white beard, long white robe, casting hell, damnation, and thunderbolts. So, I mean, I'm a little bit freaked out, but not a whole lot. And I got home, told my parents thought this kid's really weird, and that was the extent of it. I had no context to hold that in. So for the next, 10, 20 years, I went into college as an engineer, worked in nuclear power industry, but still kept this right brain kind of side going. You may have heard of Werner Erhard as training back in the 70s and 80s, the big self-help guru. Worked with him quite a bit. Did transformational breath work, taught that, and got involved with a lot of men's work back in the 90s, which was really big back then. and also with what's called flower essences, Pearlander flower essences. Got heavily involved with that. In 2001, right after 9/11, I met a wonderful woman named Sharon Hamilton, who is the creator, co-creator with nature of light expression essences. And they're a very high vibration essence. Her website is lightexpressionessences.com. And she's created over 200 different essences. And she's at a place right now where she no longer uses the physical manifestation of these essences, where she works with the angelic realm, the divas, and basically downloads the information into the individual essence bottles. And so she's a good friend of mine, and she and I work together, have been working together for 20 years. I use her essences for my daily clearing. And one of the things that I have found is that it's really important as a practitioner to clear every day, to clear your system out, whatever tools and techniques you use, but to be clear. And so that's one of my goals. And one of the declarations I made was just to be as clear as possible this lifetime and to be as open and to be as open as possible to myself and to my clients. Um, so we lost you, Dee. Anyway, um, so from that, I been working with folks, work with, with, like I said, with groups, with individuals, private sessions. I work with children, probably as young as about 6 months old. I work with autistic kids. I work with kids who have severe mental health issues and adults, pretty much the whole gambit of people. Now, one of the things that I discovered when I started working with the Akashic Records is that what I do is basically a frequency conversation. It's not about the words that I say, it's about the frequency that is behind the words. So I use light language, which people might say it's the first language, the primal language, perhaps the language that we first spoke before we actually developed cognitive language or understandable, translatable languages. And I use that light language as a way to transmit the energy, the frequencies to the individual, to the groups. I find that I really am not that interested in the English or the translation of the work that I do, because what we're doing is bypassing the mind, bypassing your thinking self, um, bypassing all the judgments and opinions and thoughts and so on. Because what I find is that people get too involved in their thinking then and kind of lose track and lose the energy of what we're doing. So basically, what we're doing here is a little bit of English, where I work and tell you pretty much like we're working with this chakra or that chakra, the third eye, the heart chakra, and so on, and maybe some background information. Typically, I don't work with any particular past life. What I do is work with the culmination of who you are today in the present and the now, and all those influences from your past life, your astrology, your parents, your childhood, and so on. So what we're doing is to collaborate, we're in a collaborative process where I collaborate with you to, you might say, elicit through your Akashic records those behavior patterns that you repeat over and over and over again. All the past life information that you've done, all the times you've existed as soul, where you haven't healed those emotional patterns. So we bring those forward for healing. Now, as you know, that every person is their own healer. I don't heal anything, but I act as an interpreter of those energies for you and to assist you in that clearing process. So we'll bring forth a lot of what we call the subconscious patterns from all the lifetimes, and probably the ones that are most important or most crucial to you in the moment, and then help you clear them so they no longer impact you. So you can then create a life, what I call your based on your true self in the present and the now, instead of creating a path, you might say, to create a future based on your past. Typically, as humans, we create a future based on our past, our memories, past experiences, and so on. So what we're doing is to move through that so you can be present in the now and create a future out of now, because every human being is an infinite array of potentialities. That there's people talk different universes. I'll say that we all each are an individual array of infinite potentialities. But typically, we only focus on a very narrow band within that infinite array of potentialities. So fairly predictable lifetime after lifetime in certain respects of what you're going to be doing, people that you're friends with, who you're going to marry, blah, 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 blah. And so what we're doing is to break that pattern and to look at those behaviors, those emotional issues that you're still really tied to, and to help break them so you become more of what I call who you truly are, which to me is that we as individuals are love, joy, compassion, passion, appreciation, kindness, grace, gratitude, and generosity. And that to me is who we are as humans. We have a past, but we're not our past. So this is to move out of your past, to be in the present and the now, and to create your future based on your now, whatever that might be, whatever interests you, whatever um, challenges you have, and whatever wherever you want to go with your lifetime. Um, and I find that absolutely thrilling. I've been doing it now for 15 years. I've worked with thousands of individuals, and I've done hundreds of groups in this area, in the Mid Atlantic area. And I find it just a really beautiful challenge of working with folks this way. Now, one of the things that I've also found very interesting and why I believe that the frequency conversation is so important as opposed to the words, uh, basically what I understand is that we as the Akashic Record workers, we're working at the DNA level. Now, you may or may not know that back in the 1990s, the geneticists, when they were developing the Genome Project and our whole gene structure, discovered that only 3 to 5% of our DNA was actually doing something. In other words, they were only 3 to 5% of our DNA was actually chemically connecting with our genes. It didn't make any sense. Why would only 3 to 5% of our genetic structure be communicating with our genes and not 100%? Well, they coined that 95% a highly, excuse me, a highly scientific term called junk DNA. They had no idea what it was, what it was for. So they kind of left it and says junk DNA. Now, I understand the Russians did further experiments in the 2000s using laser technology and so on, where they actually discovered that 95% is actually what we might call quantum energy. In other words, it's not the physical presence, it's a quantum energy. It's kind of hard to describe verbally, but the fact is that to me, it acts like our software. So it's that part of the DNA to me is the software part that communicates with our hardware, which is a 3 to 5% of the DNA that chemically connects with your genes and gives instructions to the hardware part of our DNA. So when we're using a frequency conversation, such as the vocalizations that we do with the Akashic Records and light language, we're impacting your DNA. We're impacting that 95% of your DNA, which acts as your software code to basically rewire it, you might call it, change the blueprint. Other folks here have talked about changing your blueprint. So we're doing that on the DNA level. Uh, you may have heard of the channeled energy called Kryon, Kryon, channeled by Lee Carroll, internationally known channel since 1989. And they wrote a fascinating book in 2010 called The 12 Layers of DNA. And in that, Kryon describes the whole structure of our DNA from an esoteric, energetic point of view, not from a chemical point of view. And so you can get into more detail by reading that in terms of how the DNA works, something that our ancient ones have known about, and now science is starting to catch up with that. So that's basically what we're working with here, working through your DNA, working through the software part of your DNA, to shift your behavior patterns so you can then design a future based on more of who you truly are as opposed to your past, your memories, and so on. Now, another interesting aspect of all this is when, as a child, as a baby, as a infant, I understand, and this comes from Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote a book called The Biology of Belief in 2005. And he is a biochemist who coined the term epigenetics, or beyond genes. In that book, he talks about the way that the epigenetics or our genetic structure works from a third trimester pregnancy up through about age 7 or so. And that child, that baby, that infant, that fetus is fully at the, you might say, at the mercy of its environment. That it absorbs everything going on environmentally. And that really has the influence of how our genes then become structured. So one of the things that I love doing is working with infants and kids, so we can alter that. We can alter that pattern, those patterns that are epigenetics of a child. And I've noticed I've worked with autistic kids and kids with parents who were significantly substance abuse, fentanyl, and so on, that we can get in there even at a young age and start altering those patterns that came through the epigenetics of the parents and the whole influence of your environment, by working through the DNA. When I work with kids, I do a recording. I don't have to being present with the child. And so anybody up until 18, I typically also want to work with one of the parents, typically the mother. So I don't want to put that child back in the same environment, even though they may be shifting, the parents aren't shifting. And I've noticed that even with babies up 6 months of age and so on, I remember one with fentanyl, that we were able to basically clear out the impact of the fentanyl on the child. On the autistic child who had not spoken, was 4 years old, the child, after about a month of doing work, and what I would do is record like 15, 20-minute sessions, connect with their higher self, and then send the tape recording to the parent, and the parent would then play that recording to the child. And then the child started speaking at age 4, had never spoken before. Now, I can't prove that it came through the work that we were doing, but it was, right afterwards, that a child started speaking. And the same with physical shifting and changes, like physical health issues. I remember working with two women who had severe endometriosis, inflammation of the uterus. And they spent about a year going through all your medical procedures, alternative medical procedures, and so on, with no effect, no impact. And so after a group session with them and each of them individually, and then some private sessions, I got called from both of them saying that within a week or so, there was no evidence of endometriosis. And in one woman, I remember very clearly that she was really, really, really angry at God. And so once we cleared that anger, um, because to me, there's always an energetic component to physical issues, that there's an energetic perturbation within the body. And once you can clear that energetic perturbation, the symptoms can disappear. Now, it may take quite a bit of work. It depends on the issues, the resistance of the individual, and so on. But all the physical issues are possible to clear up. I mean, there's a lot of evidence of that. So again, to me, this is an energetic issue. We're working with the energies. Um, and if you would, I would love to do a kind of a group clearing, just like Elizabeth did, to demonstrate, oh, excuse me, to demonstrate the use of light language and vibrational tones with the group. So I would just ask everybody to just relax. You can have eyes open, eyes closed, and we'll just start. And again, this is a clearing for the entire group that's on here, plus anybody coming on later on. Um, Koye meno ki au ni sha o e au koye am na koye ewa toko ye pehe matuta. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, dear ones. The records are now open. The records are now open. The records are open as a collective, as a collective, if you will. Yo ya ya yo ya am na koye awa toko ye pehe ma. Koye meno ki awa toko hi ama shaki he au toko puma kuatawa. Koye me no ke awa toku ye pe hea i sama koe e wak e au au yo oe e awa toku aham. Koye me no ke awa shama koe e we awa toku ye pe hiam naki awa tatu. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Such beautiful souls you are, such beautiful souls you are, such beautiful souls you are. Anger, 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 anger. There is much anger within this group. Ancient unresolved issues, not necessarily from this lifetime. Going back to the ancient Egyptians, times of the pyramids, which existed long before recorded history. Times of healers, dear one. Times of misunderstandings, misinterpretations of your work. And the various sundry, shall we say, curses and spells that have been placed upon you through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, unbeknownst to you. Yamakuye pakoye teka majula. Koye menokiam nakoye awa tokuye pehe makoye shekya awa tokua. Koye menokiam nakoye echya a ojokuye emaki a tukubo jamakuye e patawa. Goye merkia tokuye a mabujama kupata huaham. Time to release, time to release this anger, this rage. Deeply held within, deeply held within. Times you are healers, shall we say, what the generic term of healer. Your shaman, oracle, witch doctor, it matters not, priest or priestess, all the different terminologies through all the various lifetimes, throughout all the history of humanity upon this planet, shall we say. Regardless if you came from here or elsewhere, it matters not. There are so many beautiful beings of light here loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you, loving you. Yo 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 yo. Oh yo 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 yo. You hang ya 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 wa. Oh yeah yeah through your beautiful loving hearts through. Time to release energies deep within your hearts. You put the anger, the rage, as we have indicated. Yamakuya awa tukuye peha jamakuya awa tukuye bahum. Koye menoki a ye sheke awa tokuye pehe makua. Koye menoki amnaki a jakuye e awa tokuye ham. Yamakoye ewa a takoye achim yata uya ja umnaka atukupa a. He achim ya takuye patamahe abtubam. The beautiful beings of light you are, the beautiful beings of light you are, dear ones. Such beautiful, beautiful beings of light you are. Time to expand your horizons. Time to expand your potentialities that you have been neglecting over time. Time to allow, time to allow, time to allow, and stand in your power, your strength as human, whether you are female, male, or whatever, it matters not. Yo 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 yo. Yo 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 yo. Um, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, you, yo, 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 yo. Oh, yo, 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 yo. You're such beautiful, beautiful beings of light. And this work shall continue on for days and weeks ahead. It will not end when we complete this day. The days and weeks ahead just to observe, just to notice. There is nothing else to do, just to be. There is nothing to do, just to be, and to be allowing, allowing, allowing. To observe the shifts and changes within yourself, how you relate to yourself, how you relate to others. We thank you, we bless you on your journey, on your path, on your way, dear ones. And we are complete, we are complete, we are complete. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was
Well,
amazing. I felt that. My
good.
chest area, and your story has been fabulous. So, if anyone has, we've got about 5 minutes. You've got questions for Bill? Bill, if you've got more to share, this floor is yours.
Let's see. Yeah, my website is myakashichealing.com. That was posted by Dee. Let's see here. So the question, based on your work, do babies take on more of their mother's or father's ancestral genetic issues? Everybody's going to be different. Then there's no one way or the other. You are going to carry on your ancestral lines, and that's part of the clearing that goes on is the ancestral lines. And typically, a lot of that is just abuse, sexual, physical, emotional abuse that we can clear out. But there's no one more, or whether the mother's line or the father's line. It really depends on your frequencies, your resistances, and so on. Um, yeah, financial blocks, and anything. It doesn't really matter whether it's financial, health wise, whatever the case might be. The work works with everything. It just whatever patterns, behaviors, issues, judgments, opinions that you're carrying, we can work with. It doesn't really matter. Um, the DMV, let's see, I'm planning any groups. I'll be in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania for a group with Reiki by Ricky on, let's see, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So that'd be, I think, December the 5th or so. That's the last one I'll be doing this year. I just did one in Annapolis. I'll be doing a whole bunch next year. On my website, I post a link to my meetups, which I post all my groups, so you can go there and find out what I'm doing with my groups. The sessions are 175 for an hour. I do record those. So anyway, you'll get a lot of people say that they like to re-listen to the sessions afterwards. Give yourself a couple days and then re-listen to the recording. So I do record those for you, then send you an MP3 file. So any other questions? I think that's it. Um, yeah. So anyway, yeah, this is just really fascinating work, and I just love working with the frequencies. Like I said, it's to me, we're bypassing our thinking self and our interpretations. I understand that there's like 125 different uh, definitions of karma. It's like which definition are you going to use? So we bypass all that and get into the frequency, and that the DNA really responds to certain levels of frequency, both by color and by voice or sounds. So we can activate our DNA through that, and that the sounds that come through me do activate the DNA. Now, one of the things I want to mention too is that to me, there's no separation between us humans and the energy out there. I mean, we're in the soup we call the ethers, whatever you want to call that, dark matter, dark energy, all these different terminologies or definitions. We're in the soup just like fish are in water. We're in the soup of the energy. And that there's no, like, you go 100 light years and make a right hand turn, there's the Akasha, you make a left hand turn, and there's Reiki. Now it's all the soup that we're in, and we just access these energies based on our own frequencies. Whatever, Di does her work her way, Elizabeth does her work her way, I do my work my way. So there's all these different varieties out there, and it's up to the individual then to attune to what works for them. You go from, whatever person, whatever kind of practice, really calls you and to work with that one. Um, I think we're about done. Any other questions, anybody, Di?
No, just fabulous comments. Amazing. Thank you. Much gratitude for your generous clearing, Bill. You've answered some of the questions about your group work. You answered the questions about pricing. I think you've nailed it.
Yeah. No, thank
Right?
you. Thank you, everybody. I so appreciate you all being here today. Hope to hear from you in the future. And same with all the presenters today. Thank you. I'm so appreciative and to all the work that we're doing. Thank you.
And thank you for stepping in earlier, Bill, than your
No
schedule.
problem.
I really appreciate that because looks like my 5 o'clock speakers, I don't know, she might be in the soup. She's not here. That's all I can say.
Okay.